Welcome to this episode of Sweet Speak. I'm your host, JD Miller. This is where we talk with visionaries shaping the future of business, technology, and leadership. In today's episode, we're diving into one of the more pressing and complex frontiers in cybersecurity, Agentic AI Security. So as AI shifts from passive tools to autonomous agents capable of independent action, the stakes and the challenges have never been higher. Joining us today is Inigo Cirauqui, Head of AI Engineering at Guardare, a leader at the intersection of advanced machine intelligence and enterprise security. With deep technical expertise and a mission-driven mindset, Inigo is helping define what it means to secure a world where machines don't just assist, they act. We'll explore how organizations can prepare for this seismic shift, how to defend against agentic AI threats, how to responsibly deploy autonomous systems, and why the future of cybersecurity hinges on symbiotic collaboration between human insight and machine speed. From real-time threat response to AI-driven decision-making, this is a can't-miss conversation for any leader navigating the fast-moving world of intelligent systems. So, when we come back, I'll sit down with Inigo. Welcome to the show, Inigo.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
So we have so much I want to dive into here, Inigo, and let's look at the big picture first. So agentic AI is gaining traction in cybersecurity conversations. Can you explain what it is and why it matters right now?
Essentially, it's a difficult question because there's so much to say. So how to summarize that, right? So whenever I get the question, what I answer with usually is agentic AI is an automation pipeline with the capacity to make their own decisions to some degree, right? So picture a process in any company where you have some automation pipeline, where you get some inputs, and you have defined a set of steps, right? But what if one of those inputs is slightly different to the usual, right? How do you react to that? If you have a standard automation pipeline, you go from A to D through B and C, right? But what if the input changes? That's why where agentic AI comes in, right? Agents are based on language models. We have access to this huge repository of information, right? This huge repository of information gives the language model essentially the ability to some minimal controlled degree of cognition, right? It's not a Skynet, right? But it knows enough to make some decisions. It can adapt. If the input is slightly different, instead of going from A to B to C and to D, it can change it a little bit to make the output more optimal. Agentic AI in the cybersecurity landscape would be the pipeline, the automated pipeline will detect a threat and tell you to block a port. The AI agent might find a different mitigation action rooted in data.
So how do you see agentic AI transforming the modern security operations center, the SOC? Will it redefine roles or just enhance those roles?
I think it will really enhance them. It's going back to the information, the huge amount of information the agents will have access to, right? It will not replace human roles. It will empower them. It will give them many more tools to tackle the same problems. Picture a person acting alone in an SMB who is tackling 10 different problems, right? That person will have to put a lot of time into investigating a problem, then designing an action, and then applying it, right? With the AI agents, you have access to a lot of information which will help you just make decisions faster, learn about the problem faster and more efficiently, right? So first and foremost, agentic AI will embed into the existing SOC teams, right? It will, for everything, every action that has to be applied, every problem that is found, AI agents will be able to analyze it better, faster, and having access to more information. So the AI agent, the team members will be able to make better decisions.
Let's dive more, Inigo, into that human plus AI collaboration, because we continue to talk about all these advancements in AI, how it's going to keep us safe. I've led some conversations lately about Gen AI, keeping Gen AI safe, right? But that human aspect is more important than ever before. So what do you think are some practical ways SOC teams can balance the autonomy of AI agents with the intuition and experience of human analytics?
Just by always keeping the human in the loop. Like the AI agents will have access to a lot of information all the time, every time, right? Picture an AI agent will connected to your firewall, right? It will be able to find threats and propose mitigation actions. Like, for example, you should change this configuration in this particular piece of software that you have, right? But what if the AI agent is not aware of some specific part of your company that is directly connected to that? Because the AI agents only have access to what you allow them to have access, right? So the human factor there is key, the human expertise. It is very important for the AI agents to base their responses, actions, suggestions, recommendations, everything they do needs to be really based on data. And that data needs to be presented to the user. For example, in Guardare, when we analyze some data and propose recommendations, mitigation actions to problems or threats that we detect, what we do is every possible suggestion, every possible recommendation or action that we suggest to the users, we base that on data and we present that data in a human readable format, right? It will be really difficult for a CISO to go through thousands of lines of logs just to figure out what's going on, what should I do, how should I do that, right? The AI agent can do that automatically, right? But in order to make the best decision afterwards, the human experience is still a determinant factor. They can check the suggestion, the actions proposed by the AI agent, but also they can make sure that the proposals are correct because they have access to the data, not access to 10,000 lines of code or 10,000 lines of logs, but to a one line or a couple of lines of text that clearly explain the problem and why we need to apply this transformation, right? So the human is still key because we will always have access to the whole scope, right? We will have a much wider view where we consider a lot of different factors that sometimes might not be accessible to the AI agent, but we can benefit from its incredible capacity for analysis, summarization, anomaly detection.
So let's talk about signal versus noise then, Inigo, because AI promises faster detection and response, but how do we ensure agentic systems reduce alert fatigue rather than contribute to it?
By always focusing on precision, or that's an opinion to some degree, but by always focusing on precision over volume, right? As you said, the AI agents will have access to all the information and will be able to flag thousands of items, right, and propose thousands of actions. But at the same time, because they have access to all that information, we can set up systems to rank the recommendations, rank the findings. We don't need to bother the user with 1,000 problems to handle. We just need to find the one that's most important, the one that's most critical, that you need to put your effort into it. We will use the agents to go through all the information. You don't have to worry about spending 3 days nose deep in code or nose deep in logs, right? You just have to, we will do that filtering for you, or the AI agent will do that filtering for you, always justifying the responses, right? And that's something where the AI agents really thrive, right? Because we as humans have the capacity to do 1, 2, 3 things at a time. Like we can check the logs from application A, or we can check the logs from the firewall, or from the antivirus, or from our virtualization system, right? But there may be hidden interactions, and we can figure out 10 actions for the first system, 10 for the second, and 10 for the third, right? But what if I apply in a single action? You can tackle all the problems at once, right? The AI is really good at looking at everything together, making the connections and prioritizing, reducing the noise, removing the noise. But removing the noise, but removing the noise that gets presented to the user, not forgetting about it, just having access to everything and prioritizing what needs to be handled.
So let's talk then about trust and transparency, right? As agentic AI makes more autonomous decisions, how important is explainability in security tools? And what are we doing? Are we doing enough, do you think, to make AI's decisions transparent?
That depends on how the AI is used, and like any language model or the language models that are used right now are probabilistic systems, which means that depending on the input that you give, you will get one or another output, which means that sometimes, depending on the input, the models can hallucinate, as they say, right? Providing responses that don't really align with the actual problem. So it is extremely important. Explainability is extremely important. It's not enough to just have a black box AI that says, malware detected, take this action without context, right? If a CISO or IT person looks at that, I mean, if I spent over 4 years in an IT department, if I get a program that just says to me, do this, do that, do whatever, I was going to say, why? Is this going to break something else? Why do you need for me to block this port, to uninstall this program, right? We need to be able to justify to explain every decision. And that's not complicated per se with with how LLMs work, right? Because as I said, the outputs are a direct result of the inputs. We have access to the inputs. We just need to present them to the user in a useful, in a human readable form. Like at Guardare, for every recommendation that we create, we give the data that supports it, right? You need to take this action because of this reason. We don't ask you to trust us. We just ask you to trust your data, and that's not that complicated because it's just the principle behind the AI agents and the models.
So let's talk then about risk and responsibility, because what are those emerging risks of over relying on AI in cybersecurity, specifically and particularly in decision making or critical incident response?
It could come a point to it can give you a false sense of security, right? Like over reliance on AI can give. If a team starts to blindly trust the AI decisions without question, they might miss things when the AI gets something wrong or when the AI is not looking at something, right? So also, as we said before, the hallucinations are always a risk with the AI. That's why keeping the human in the loop, keeping the human factor is always important, right? It's important that it's very useful to use the AI to analyze data, to produce recommendations, or to distill or extract the key points in the data. But we cannot blindly just rely on it. We need to rely also on our experience, our understanding of the situation and the context, with not just that. And of course, we are, as a separate topic almost, we are using AI to empower our defenses, right? AI agents for cybersecurity, which means that attackers are also using AI agents. So it's not just, yes, we are super powered and we are mitigating every risk, right? The other team is doing the same thing as us. So it's especially important to adopt this kind of technologies, not just as empowering tool, but as a necessary one.
Yeah. So with any tool like this, there's regulatory and compliance considerations, right? So how do you think the rise of autonomous AI is changing the compliance conversation in cybersecurity? Are current frameworks prepared for this shift?
I would say yes. I mean, we will all need to adapt. We will see changes in a lot of different aspects, right? Like from new regulation, from governmental regulations or otherwise. Like for example, Europe's AI Act that has come out recently, right? That will force or require changes in the processes to ensure transparent, explainable, and continuous monitorization of the AI actions. We will see new AI governance policies in like you could see a lot of different companies that dabble with sort of riskier private information, like for example, and all of those will be applying changes to their current processes just to be able to limit the risks inherent to the use of AI. Like for example, health company with tons of records, thousands of records of the patients, shouldn't be blindly using the public API for any of the language models that are out there, right? But that doesn't mean that they cannot use AI. It just means that these companies need to adapt. Maybe they need to go through for a private model with a different provider, or maybe they just need to buy a server or set up some different infrastructure to do it. We need to be aware of the actual risks of the AI poses and just adapt to them. There are a lot of different solutions and alternatives that we could pursue to just be able to do or to make use of the AI responsibly. But at the same time, on the flip side, there are other benefits of using it, right? Like because of the same things that we were saying before about how the AI agents can manage all the information, how can they treat a lot of data sources together. It's also going to help with compliance, with keeping track of compliance against different regulations. Like before, you might need to hire or an auditor for making sure you're in check with with any particular regulation, and a different one to making sure that you're in check with another one. You have to have an expert in HIPAA and an expert in GDPR and an expert in whatever, right? You can simplify some of that process with AI. If it has access to your information, it will allow you to just seamlessly identify improvement areas that will in turn improve your processes as well. So it's risky, but we will have to adapt our processes. But at the same time, having access to a lot more information will make that adaptation not that painful.
So process is always important, right? But let's talk about the people for a second. Do you think the security workforce of the future needs to be trained differently to work alongside agentic AI? And what skills will become more or less critical?
I don't think that the training needs to change per se. I think that how it is being, how the training happens is what's going to change. And there also will be that higher value skills will be in demand. Like picture an intern that joins a company, right? Like the senior might have to put aside 4 hours every day to sit with that person, make him learn the ropes and teach him the processes, right? In the current setup or in the near future, what we might see is instead of putting aside 4 hours of the senior to train something, that new joiner to the company will have an AI co-pilot, an AI companion that will teach him the basics. I mean, the senior will always be there, supporting the new person and helping with whatever is required. But instead of putting 4 hours into that, he will just put one, and the remaining time he will be using it for putting his actual skills where they add the most value, right? Like reviewing the perfectly clarified and summarized logs from another AI companion, to actually handle the problems of the company. Everyone will benefit. Training times will reduce. It's like from personal experience, and I assume that most people, it's 6 months ago or a year ago, something. I mean, I'm a coder by trade. What took me 1 month now takes 2 days, right? That's not only because the AI agent does things for me, not at all. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't, but it's because my learning capacity has increased so much. That will apply to the company, and it will only increase the existing abilities of the people we have, right? It will further train the experts and speed up the training of the not so experts, right?
So let's talk about the ethical considerations. So when we think about this for CISOs, what are the ethical considerations they need to keep top of mind when deploying autonomous AI in security environments?
One of the um, one of the bigger points I would say is about accountability. AI agents. We've said before how the AI agents do a very good job about summarizing the information, but it's important to keep the human in the loop to make the final decision. That will change in the future. Like if you have a system that goes, if you have an AI agent producing a recommendation or telling you to do whatever action to mitigate the risk, the situation with the user will evolve. Like the first time, it will just follow the steps and apply the action that the AI agent tells him to do, right? Second time, he might do the same thing. Third time, third time, instead of actually following the steps, that person might say, hey, the AI agent is actually producing very good recommendations. It's actually guiding me very well, right? At that point, the person will tell to the Guardare agent, for example, hey, do this for me, and let me just check the results. Right? The fourth day, he will do the same. The fifth day, where he gets a similar recommendation, probably not the same, but a similar recommendation, the CISO will say, why do I have to worry about this every day? I mean, if it's just gone from taking 10 minutes of my time to just taking one, right? AI agent, do this every day for me, right? At that point, it is very important to keep accountability, right? The language models, the AI agents need to keep track of what they do. We need to still be able to keep track of what's going on in our companies and be sure that we can audit and evaluate that, right? We cannot come to a situation where something has broken and we blame the AI agent. That's not how it works, right? We cannot fire the AI agent. We cannot apply any actions there. We need to be able to know what's going on. So that's one of the most important things I would say that more important problems that we will find. Um, it's very important to acknowledge that the AI agents or AI or programming, for that sakes, are tools, right? But it's the actual experts within the company, the ones that will make those decisions. And we need to make sure that the data is that the reasons for AI agent actions are there, and we believe them. Other than that, just of course, privacy concerns we will have to face. We'll have to ensure that our systems are secure. You know, the usual. But in terms of delegating jobs, you know, it's just. But it happens on every level. The moment you delegate a job, you need to be sure. You need to be confident on what you're doing. You need to trust the person you delegate that job to, or in this case, you need to trust the tool.
Speaking of trusting the tool, what industry trends are you watching closely when it comes to AI-driven security, and what's still flying under that radar that more people should be paying attention to today?
As for trends, I mean, the first one is, of course, just how it is evolving and how we will see AI everywhere in this case in cybersecurity, right? We are talking about. I mean, we at Guardare, what we do is we aggregate data from every information possible and guide the user into applying effective actions, right? Into really focusing your resources. But that's just one application. Every one of the applications out there in the cybersecurity space are applying their own versions of agents that just automate some process. You know, so it will be very interesting to see how that evolves and what kind of different actions, agents we begin seeing out there, because the possibilities are almost limitless, right? And because of my background, there's another thing that really looks very interesting to me. Like we have talked about how AI agents need to be private and secure, and we need to secure the data and making sure that there are no leaks there, right? But it will be really interesting to see as these systems evolve. I'm sure that we will begin to see some federated learning applied also to these agents, right? Where autonomous agents that operate independently and securely and privately within a company begin to also collaborate, leveraging the data from every possible source, not for telling on anybody, but for actually improving their learning. Like if the same agent is working in my company and 10 other companies, I want to benefit of the action that it has learned in another one. You know, it's like the AI agent will suggest actions and it will receive some human feedback and it will learn from that. The actions will be better each time. Recommendations will be better. I need to be able, I don't want to rely only on my training, on my feedback. I want to leverage the whole cybersecurity landscape, all the experts that are out there. It will be very interesting to see. Of course, it poses its own problems and security, and that's going to be a really important point, something to keep in track.
If you're a CISO or a security executive listening to this conversation we're having today, what's one strategic question you should be asking your team this quarter about AI readiness?
That's an interesting point on how to distill all of that into a single question. But maybe what I would ask is, it won't be a single question, but I will say something like, how many sources of information do we have? How much control do we have? We know that we are secure because we have 10 different programs that make us secure. We want to be better, right? We want to optimize our processes. How well do you think that we could do that without AI? How much information can you process at the same time, right? Where could we leverage AI into our processes? I'm sure that every person will come up with a different answer, but I doubt that there will be anyone who doesn't have an idea, right? Either we summarize our processes, improve our policies, change our configuration, right? Truth is that AI, lately we've been seeing language models and AI agents everywhere. Truth is that machine learning is extremely flexible and AI is extremely flexible. So there will always be some place where we can implement it to optimize our processes.
Yeah. So I have to talk to you, Guardare. You guys are new to the scene. Talk to me a little bit about what you guys do, because a lot of what we were talking about, you guys are hearing and seeing out there.
We are simplifying CISO's lives. I've put in a personal example, right? As I said before, I was leading an IT team for a few years in the past, and we went through some difficult situations, like sometimes we had more or less people in the team, or during the COVID situation, for example, where just people was not always there, right? So truth is that the average IT person usually has to deal with tremendous amounts of information, and sometimes it is very difficult to make informed decisions. As a former member of the IT team, I consider IT people superheroes, right? But still, you cannot do everything. You cannot know everything. So what we do at Guardare, or one of the things that we do at Guardare, is help with that. All that information that you have coming to you from 10 different sources that you can barely manage, not because of you're not good enough, but because it is a tremendous amount of information. We bring all of that together, we process all of that together, and we identify the key areas where your team should focus. You don't have to gobble around endless amounts of information. You just, we help you identify the things where you should put the attention. As with everything, all the things we said before, right? We identify those things and we always aim for justifying those responses, right? Just focus on this. You should block this bot. You should do this action because of this reason. And this is more important than this other action because of this data, right? You really need to focus on this. And of course, we do all of that, and we give you the options to do all of that. We give you details and steps to follow on those recommendations, but we also bring AI agents into that at the same time, right? Where we use the AI agents for processing the information, for generating those recommendations, for identifying the risks, for generating the mitigation actions, right? We consider all the information together, and we give you the opportunity to also delegate the work to AI agents, but always going through the expert first. You can rely on agents, on Guardare agents, but always basing your actions in supporting information.
Inigo, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you to Inigo for joining us here today. If you want to listen to past episodes of SweetSpeak, you can go to jamesdewayne.com, that's DWAYNE.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for listening.